Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Sekani, a podcast for people in their 20s who are trying to figure out life and not get lost along the way. Today's guest is Ferre, a career coach with over 20 years of experience in senior human resources and talent leadership. Having held leadership roles at organizations including British Airways and Leon Restaurants, Jane has helped countless professionals build successful careers from both sides of the hiring process. After experiencing redundancy twice in 1 year, she turned one of life's biggest setbacks into a new purpose, which is helping others land their dream role with confidence. Today, she equips job seekers with the practical tools and mindsets they need to navigate today's competitive job market. Jane, welcome to Conversations with Sekani. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Joy. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. So, Jane, I want you to take us back to your 20s, basically.
Oh
Right.
my
So,
God. That's a long
right.
time ago.
Yeah. So, who were you then, and what dreams or ambitions were driving you then?
Do you know, it's interesting because in my 20, when I was 20, so 2021, I was at university. So I was studying catering management and retail management at Oxford Brookes University. And I was kind of envious of all of my fellow students because they all had a very clear idea about what they wanted to do, and I didn't really know. I was just like, I was only doing that because I'd worked in a hotel since I was like 13. I was very tall for my age. So back then, we're talking in the 90s. Back then, you could you didn't have to go through all the checks and everything that you have to go through now. So I kind of looked a lot older than I was. So I was, paid cash in hand and it was fine. Um, so I just kind of was in that space of, well, I don't know what to do. So what I'm going to do is just say yes to things. So when it came to the end of my last year at uni, I was 21, and what used to happen, they called it a milk round. So because we were doing like hospitality, the big hotel groups like the Hilton, the Marriott, they would come to the uni and kind of present and do interviews. And I didn't, somehow that passed me by. And then I suddenly realized everyone was getting jobs and I had no job. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And so at that time, see, I think everything happens for a reason. What happened then was Disneyland Paris was opening that year. So it was 1992, and they were coming around to the university. So I was like, well, I did French at school. So I went to this presentation, which was great. And then three of us were in like a group interview because I think they wanted to see like how you respond. The lady interviewing me was English and she'd only been learning French since she started working at Disney. Her French was terrible. And I got the job. So I got the job on their graduate program in hospitality. So I just was like, okay, great. So I finished my studies and then I went to Paris, age 21, which was just like an incredible experience because it's a bit like an extension of university. So it's almost like it's a graduate scheme on steroids because yes, you've got all of the training, and Disney is an incredible place for training, for learning, because they have such strict systems and procedures and rules. But also you're living with other people who've all come in from all over the world. So, we'd be having lunch and there would be people from the US and Canada and Italy and Spain and Portugal and France and Ireland. And it was just like this incredible melting pot of people and cultures. And some of my best friends that I have now, I met at Disney. So that was almost like the start of my 20s. And then I kind of did that for sort of 2.5 years. I was there. And then I came back to the UK and I was like, right, now I need to get a proper job. And then I got a job working for a holiday company in Spain. So I then went to Spain and then I went to do a ski season in Andorra. And then I went back to Spain. And then I was like, right now, I really need to get a job. By this time, I'm about 26. And I got a job with British Airways working in their cargo team. And that was the start of my 20-year career in British Airways.
Wow. Okay. So first of all, I'd like to say you look like you're in your 20s, by the way,
Oh,
correct? So
thank you.
I want to tell. And one lesson I think I'll learn from your story is that in your 20s, you should be willing to try out new things, right?
Yeah,
Nobody
yeah,
has, yeah. I mean, there are some people that know what they want, right? For people who do not necessarily know what path to go, I think the best thing is to try out new things. That
yeah,
way you get to learn a whole lot and
yeah.
also you get to learn what you like, right?
Yes.
So that would be my lesson, right, from your
But
interesting
I
life
think
story.
and also, if you're able to kind of use that to travel. So a lot of people like I think nowadays is a very different time. So, you've got access to opportunities like in your pocket, via your mobile phone. So if you think about,
Yeah.
an airline, even if you don't know what to do, go and be cabin crew and go and travel the world or go and work on a cruise ship. Or like I was a holiday rep. So it's just like you're doing something that's quite daring and you're seeing the world, but you're also
Mm.
kind of you're also in this safe space because whether you're on a cruise ship or on an working for an airline, you're kind of looked after, I'd say. You're
Mm.
always surrounded by other people, a bit like I was in Disney. I'd go to Disney and then I was living, it was like a student accommodation, but it was for Disney. So there was a lot of parties. Thank God social media wasn't around when I was there. But it's almost like go and do those jobs because when you get to 30 or 35, it's very hard to do that because you've got, maybe family, other responsibilities, maybe your parents are, you know, aging, maybe your siblings need your help. But at that, in your 20s, it's like the world is literally your oyster. And that's the time to go and try stuff. And I even say it now, like even starting my own business, it's like, what's the worst thing that can happen? The worst thing that can happen is you don't like it and you come
Right.
home and you go and do something else. So what? It's then go and try something else, but you have to almost be get a bit uncomfortable and try things and don't give up either too easily. So feel that discomfort and lean into it and learn to work with it because if you don't if there's no discomfort you're not learning anything, I always think.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. All right. So we should be, comfortable with discomfort, right? Because at the end of the day, it's for your own growth, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I want us to talk about career and job hunting, right? Because
Okay.
I mean, like, 80% of young adults today, we are job hunting, right? So we need to know what are the things people do wrong and what people
Mm,
do right. Right. So you've been on both sides of the hiring process as someone uh, searching for work and as someone, making hiring decisions. So what's
mm.
the biggest misconception job seekers have about, recruitment?
So I think I use the term scattergun. I see these posts on LinkedIn and these posts on Facebook, and it's like I've applied for 100 jobs this week, and it's like, really? You applied for 100 jobs? Well, maybe you did apply for 100 jobs, but you didn't do it very well. Is all, and I know right now why you didn't get a response from any of them because if you're applying to 100 jobs in a week, that is I can't really do maths. How many a day? So you're doing what I call a scattergun approach. So you're just firing your CV off to everybody rather than really thinking about, well, actually, what is it that I want? What type of what type of industry do I want to work in? So do I want to work in hospitality, aviation, FMCG? Do I want to work in space travel? Do I want to work in AI, banking, financial services? And then it's like, what kind of culture do you want to work in? So some people are very suited to big traditional, like a BA kind of organization, a civil service, government um, type of organization where it's quite slow, quite methodical, quite process driven. And other people are much more comfortable in a startup kind of environment. Both are, I don't know of anybody that can really work in both spaces. Um, but it's like which one is most appropriate to you, and there's only one way to find out really, so it's about being really clear about that. And I think, when you're sort of in your 20s, you haven't necessarily got that much experience in the world of work, and that's okay. But it's like, so what else are you doing with your time? So, I used to recruit a lot of graduates at BA. So I'd get involved in the graduate recruitment process. And, a lot of them are very focused on their studies, which is fine. But what else? What else are you doing in the world that is making you a kind of more rounded individual and teaching you all of those other things that you need to learn? So, I worked in a hotel from the age of 13. That teaches you so much about people, about the general public, about, working as a team, about just getting on and doing things. And, it's like, what else are you doing apart from studying? And how are you contributing to the bigger society? So you volunteering. So, I was a girl guide. I was a brownie, then a girl guide, and then I was volunteering as a girl guide with a brownie group. So it's like, what else are you doing? And think about how you bring those examples into the world of work. So yeah, if you're straight out of uni, of course you've probably not got much work experience, but what have you got? And what are you bringing? Because if all you've got is I've been to uni, then everybody else applying for that graduate scheme has been to uni. So what sets you apart from everybody else? So I really think about that. Really. And even things that you do at uni. So I mentor university students at Oxford Brookes, where I went to. Um, and I get them to think about, are you a member of a society? Have you organized the end of season ball, for example? So it's like, okay, well, how can you really break that down into a business example? So did you do the marketing for it? How many tickets did you sell? What was your budget? Did you make a profit on it? How many refunds did you have to do? So start to think about the stuff you do in terms of applying it to a business, and start to talk about your examples in sort of business terminology. Really think about that.
Oh, okay. So, Jane, I would like to say I'm learning a whole lot, right? I'm learning a lot from our conversation. And what stood out for me, I don't know if I could relate it to what I'm about to say now, but
Mm.
in applying for jobs, right? One thing I've noticed people do, like when you said you saw someone say they applied for 100, they just have one particular CV that they
Yeah.
send to those 100 companies, right, or organizations. You don't even know what these people do, right? So I
Yeah.
feel like it is also important to know the organization
Yeah.
that you want to apply for and ask yourself, what can I offer them?
Yeah.
Right? What are they doing? In what way can I be of help to them? What can I offer this organization? I
Mm.
think that would also make you, stand out a little bit. I don't know. I've never hired anyone before,
Yeah.
but I feel like that is one of the things.
I think, it's almost thinking about, I talk to my clients about, think about a job vacancy as a problem. So if there's a
Mm,
vacancy in an organization, that means there's a problem that role is fixing. What is that problem, and can you do that problem? So
mm,
is it about, marketing, for example, and they've got no one doing marketing? Okay, so how can you help with that? Do you have you checked out their social media, for example? So some organizations are terrible at social media,
mm,
or they're doing it all wrong. So actually what you could do is show them how they could do it, much better, for example. And I think, also I think that there is that thing of, at it's sort of in your 20s, you don't have a lot of experience, but it's about what can you bring to the organization. So particularly if it's quite a old-fashioned organization, it might not be attractive to you, but they would need you, I think, more than you realize, because they really need help with things like, social media, or actually how do we attract more talent, sort of, particularly if you think about roles that are changing right now. So, I was talking to someone this morning about AI. So, AI is, yes, it's going to mean that some jobs disappear, but also it means that some jobs are going to be created that don't exist right now. So what are those jobs, and how, are you an expert in that, for example? And how can you really sort of lean into that kind of thing? Yeah.
All right. So yes, thank you, Jane, for that amazing one, actually. And another thing is, experiencing redundancy, right? It can be emotionally challenging.
Mm.
So how did those experiences reshape the way you think about career and resilience?
Um, so I think I hate to say this, but I think right now it's something that I think you always need to be ready for. I think it's something that could happen at any moment, especially, if I think about the airline industry, it's something the airline industry responds immediately to things that are going on in the world. So if you think
Mm,
about, the sort of the war in Ukraine, the war in Iraq, we've got wildfires in Europe right now, that impacts the travel industry immediately. If you're running a factory, it will impact you in 3 or 4 weeks' time because of supply chain, etc. So, very often, industries, businesses will respond by cutting one of their biggest costs, and people is generally one of their biggest costs. So it's almost like always be ready for it. And I think the first time it happens, it's like the worst thing in the world. And I don't know if it ever gets easier, but I think when you've been through it once and got through the other side, you know that you can do it again. Um, and it's very much I talk about redundancy and compare it to grief. So if you think about the stages of grief, so you start with denial. I'm actually denying this can't be happening. This can't be happening to me again. And then you start to get emotional. It's like, well, why me? Why not them? What have I done? Why, so you start to get very emotional. Then you start to rationalize it. And very often it's not a decision against you, the person, it's a business decision. So once you start to rationalize, you can then move on to acceptance. So then you accept that actually, no, it's not me. Things like this happen. And then I can make the change. But you've got to go through that cycle. And sometimes you might get to the acceptance and then you start to go back to the emotion, but you've got to almost pull yourself through it. And the quicker you can get through those stages, the quicker you can move on, and the quicker you can get over it. It will still have an impact, but I think it's just being really clear that it's not necessarily a personal decision, it's a business decision. And it will, I think everybody I mean, I deal with a lot of people who are experiencing redundancy, but even before that, or even people I meet, at networking, everybody has had experienced redundancy at one point in their career. So I would always say, think it's going to happen to you at some point. It's like we all die, right? It's going to happen to you at some point. It's just like, you know,
just brace up, right? It's gonna come anyway. So just prepare yourself for it. And
yeah.
you should also know that it's a phase, right? And
Mm,
it will pass. You just have to prepare and then
yeah.
work towards living that phase of your life. It's a normal part of life.
Yeah.
you know.
And if you push against it, very often it's like it's only like you that kind of gets sort of angry with it. It's almost like lean into it, and just go through it. Lean into it and just go through it, because there are, sometimes people experience redundancy because there's we're going to get rid of the people that are not that great. I know that. Um,
Mm,
those performance conversations haven't happened, so this is a convenient way to get rid of people. Of course it does. But just accept, you're never going to know if that's the real reason or not, but you just have to move on. There's like nothing you can do about it. All you can control is your response. You can't control the decision.
mm, all right. So yes, thank you, Jay. And so LinkedIn, right? I want us to talk about LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It has become like an important career too. So, what mistakes do you see young people make, and how can they use the platform more effectively?
So one big mistake I see is people aren't on there. It's like it can. I think it's like a double-edged thing, having a
Mm,
LinkedIn profile, particularly in the job hunting market, because there's job hunting, which is sending out your CV and applying for jobs, and there's getting found, which is actually, if you leverage your LinkedIn profile, people will find you. So I found my opportunity at Lyon through LinkedIn. So I was actually approached by the recruiter. So you need to make sure that your profile is up to date, and this is where you can be much more detailed than in your CV. So so you can put on your volunteering experiences. If they have a page, you can link to that page. You can put your work experience, and it can build and build and build. And one of the things that people don't do enough of is, Gary Vaynerchuk calls it document, don't create. It's almost like, share your thoughts, because no one can tell you that you're wrong. This is your lived experience. So write a lot of posts, write a lot of articles. Particularly if you're operating in a space that is not that common, it's quite rare. If that can help put you, sort of set you aside from the competition, then those are the sorts of things that are going to get you noticed, rather than you're just a graduate, because everyone's a graduate, right? And show me what you think. So I would say to people, get your profile up to date, make sure it matches your CV, the information that's on there in terms of dates and organizations, and then create content. So post, I was working with a guy, he's a student actually, so he's 21, and he is doing political science at university, and he wants to go into journalism, and he has a work experience, a week's work experience at Private Eye, which is one of the political magazines in the UK.
Mm.
The editor himself chooses the students that go on it, and it's a week. And I said, you need to be documenting that, and you want to go into journalism, so you're good. He's great at writing. So it's like, every day write an article on LinkedIn about your experience. So that is then always there. And it's, when people are looking for people like you, here's Jane, and here's, she wants to be a journalist, and here's examples of her writing, and here's examples of her being at Private Eye for the week. So likewise, if you're I don't know, if you're going to join cabin crew, it's like, tell me what you're doing every day. It doesn't have to be a big article. It could just be oh, we did swimming pool training today, or we jumped out of the emergency slide today, or I learned how to open a bottle of wine correctly today. It's almost like, that's that document, don't create thing. So it's like, just document what you're doing. And people, like, think about who you follow on social media. I follow some really ridiculous people who are just like living their life and documenting their life, but I just like them. There's something about them that is nice, and the more you do it, the more you hone your skill. A bit like podcasting, right? If you're the first podcast you did was probably like, you were stuttering, you were nervous, but you did it, and you did it again, and you did it again. And now you're just like, I'm just doing all these podcasts, and it's just what you do now, right?
Hmm. Okay, so documenting your process, right? That way, you people could actually reach out to you, right? You don't have to reach out and submit your CV and stuff like that. People could actually reach out to you just
Yeah.
checking your profile.
Yeah.
So it's basically putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
Ah, good.
So
Okay.
so I would say, are you putting these out on LinkedIn? Are you on LinkedIn, Joy?
I am, but like okay, I'm gonna say the truth because when you were talking, I was actually thinking I think I should put like clips of my episodes on LinkedIn because I actually don't post things on LinkedIn. I just have a profile, but I don't post on LinkedIn,
You
just
should.
YouTube, right? So I
Yeah.
think,
I would say not just so you could do both. You could do clips, or you could do a clip, and then actually kind of in the text you could put link to the full episode, and then you link to YouTube, or you
mm,
load the full episodes on there. You could do both.
um,
But I think it's
wow,
about driving traffic to your podcast, I think.
right. And like you said, daily posts of, what you're
Yeah,
doing. Because
yeah,
currently we are learning our data analytics, right? So I feel like I should also document how it's going for me, right?
yeah,
Till I get to the point where I get certified and everything.
yeah.
So wow.
Because
Oh,
because
okay, I feel tense too.
so I've just got back from the US. I'm running on 3 hours sleep today. And you're my third podcast recording today. So I like to bulk my tasks together. So rather than doing one here, one there, I've scheduled three today. So I spoke with a guy in Australia, 8 o'clock my time, someone else at 11:30, but that kind of fell apart because their internet was terrible. And now you at 2 p.m. So I've kind of done three today, and it's like three podcasts. And that's my post today. I'm recording three podcasts. And the guy from Australia already wrote me a review. So he's like, oh, here's my review. Anyone else got a podcast? Because I love going on podcasts. It's fun because I get to talk to people like you.
Wow, I'm glad I actually got to talk to you. I'm not gonna lie. Now I know I've learned a whole lot and I know things I should start doing if I
Yeah.
really want to put myself out there, and get a job, right? Because I
Yeah.
need a job. All right. So thank you,
But the
Jane.
fact, but the fact that you're doing this while you don't
Mm,
have a job sets you apart. Because actually,
mm,
everything that you have had to do to get this far. So, so just for the audience, we've met on a podcast matching app. It's a bit like
right. Not
Tinder,
much.
but for podcasting. So it's like, so you can talk about that. You go, oh, today I'm interviewing, Jane. You can tag
Yeah.
me in, you know, and you can talk about, oh, I've just recorded an episode with, Jane, tag her in, and I can't wait to edit it and get it out to you.
Mm.
It can be those kind of things, but the fact that you've had to set up a profile, you're connecting with people, that sets you apart from everybody else who's doing the sort of jobs that you want to do. So really like lean into it, Joy, for sure.
Definitely. I will. And when it starts going well, I'm gonna reach out to you and tell you, Jane, do you remember when you told me
No,
this?
you should. And for sure, like connect with me on LinkedIn. And I say this to anybody who's listening. You've Joy's got all of my stuff. Put it in the show notes. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Tell me that you listened to this episode so that I know kind of where people have come from. And you're connecting with me. And I post, I've got a monthly newsletter. I post, hints and tips sort of pretty much daily, sometimes a few times a day if I'm feeling, creative. And feel free to follow and connect. And you never know, because one of the things you should be doing as well is really building up your network. So kind of a lot of people come to me to work with me having never met me but just seeing me on LinkedIn.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Jane. This has been absolutely amazing, I would say.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna reach out on LinkedIn anyways. I'll connect with you. But I need
For
you to,
sure.
tell the listeners, right? Finally, where can listeners get to, learn more about you and also connect with you?
So two places. So LinkedIn. So Jane Ferre on LinkedIn. I am there. Connect with me. Follow me. Yeah, if you don't want to connect, you can just follow. That's fine. Or my website, which is my name, which is janeferre.com. So those are the two places that I am most active.
All right, janeferry.com. Okay,
Yeah.
and as usual, I'll put a link in the show notes so it's easily accessible for listeners. And yes, to my listeners, I want to say thanks for tuning in to Conversations with Sekani. If this episode sparked something in you, just as it did in me, make sure to share to someone you think might need this and also subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes. Once again, thank you, Jane. You
Pleasure,
have
Joy. Thanks for having me.
have a wonderful day.
Take care.
All right, take care. Hey.